is that there are two different types of engraving on this. So first and foremost, if you watch the wood that he's sitting on, it pretty much stays the same color. So there are two main different ways to get color onto metal. One is the annealment of the metal. So think of that like a vintage motorcycle where that muffler, the closer to the engine that it is, it's that darker blue and then it follows the rainbow colors all the way down until it dissipates. That's annealment. So you are literally changing the color of the metal with the heat. And that's what this laser is capable of doing. But it's also capable of doing a refraction. So much like a prism or a rainbow, when it goes through light goes through water, you can see those colors kind of change a little bit. Now that's going to do a couple different things. One, it's going to give you offsets in your base color because this is both annealment as well as refraction, but it'll also give you the ability to do the holographic effect that a lot of us have been seeing online. So if you give me just a second here, I am going to pull up XCS so we can see all of this stuff all at once. So one of the first things that you need to be able to do is to create a material test array. So the material test array, like shown here on the screen, allows you to get a broad view of what colors are available. Now this specific one right here is the test sample that you'll see up in the top right-hand corner. Now, this has a lot of really good colors here, and I can swap this around to give you a better view. There we go. So you got colors coming down into the green range and up into that yellowy orange range. And you got some blues, purples, and reds in there as well. Now, this right here is your fundamental starting point to be able to achieve these colors. And I will do my best to hold this still if anybody wants to grab a screenshot of these settings, or you can grab it from the desktop. But this is where you're going to use to start from. Now, yes, there are colors already loaded into the system. However, one of the things that a lot of people have brought up is that it's 100 plus colors. Why are there only so many colors? Why did they lock all the rest of the colors? None of these colors have been locked. It's literally finding these colors. Now, on top of that, you need to realize that this exact same piece of metal right here, if I were to send that to somebody else and have them run it on the exact same machine, they would attempt to run it and their settings would come up with different results. And the reason for that is because not all machines are 100% identical. On top of that, you also have things that are going on with your elements in your local area. Temperature, humidity, all of that can have an effect. So if I am in, say, Mesa, Arizona, and I am out in the shed, it's 102 degrees, and I'm engraving something, my metal's already pretty warm. Whereas if someone else is up in Alaska doing some engraving out in the garage, and they're looking at almost freezing weather out there, they're engraving on metal that's really cold and almost frozen. So getting those colors might be a little different in different areas. So when we are asking people to share settings, not that they have to, but if they choose to share those settings, take into consideration that whatever they are getting from their settings might not be the exact same thing that you're getting. But it is a great starting point to go on your own journey to find your own color samples. So let's talk about how this works within XCS. So I already have a test grid that we started here, and I know that there's been a lot of questions on how to actually do this. One of the things that I would like you to notice is that on mine, my text is super small. The reason that I do that is so that I can do quite a few different test grids on smaller pieces. Not only on smaller pieces like this, but dog tags. You're not going to be able to get a lot of real estate in a dog tag, but you still want to be able to get that color. So let's work on how to achieve something like this. So what we're going to do is grab this. I'm going to drag it over to the side, and we're going to just hide it for a moment. But we're going to come in here and grab a shape. Now, I am using the rounded corners square here. Now, a lot of people that I talk to will do hearts. They'll do stars. And the reason for that is because those items have values and points. And when you're doing that engraving, they want to see how this color is going to work into a small triangular shape or anything like that. For the most part, I'm usually doing pretty decent sized block prints. But we're going to take this and we're going to set this over to C engrave. Historically, we've only had 3 different types of engraving: score, engrave, and cut. With the MOPA, we now have what's called C engrave, which is your color engraving. Once we have that clicked, I know that this one right here already had some settings, and it was at 5,000 lines per centimeter. That is another thing that we need to take into consideration with doing color. Before the F2 Ultra, the max lines per centimeter that we had was 300. So if we are finding color ranges in that 5,000 range, we're essentially multiplying those lines per centimeter by about 16.6. If we're multiplying our lines by that, we're also multiplying the time. So keep that in mind. This is not something that you're going to be creating 8x8 photos every 20 minutes. It's not going to work like that. It does take some time to do some larger prints, but a lot of people aren't really going to use that just for the larger prints. They're going to use it to add embellishments, add a little pop of color here and there, and that's where a lot of that's going to fall to. Now, for this one right here, I set my power to about 14.5. So we're going to make sure that we change this to MOPA IR. We're going to change our power to 14.5, which is another change that we have with the F2 Ultra series. No longer is it a solid number. You can have 12.1, 12.6, 18.4. And as little as that number might seem, that can be the difference between getting a blue and getting a purple. So do keep that in mind when you're out there looking at your color ranges. So now that we have that set, our speed is something that we're actually running in the matrix here, as well as our frequency. So I'm going to leave those as they are, but I am going to move this lines per centimeter up. And then we're going to come over here to the left-hand side, and we're going to click on applications. From there, we'll click on material test array. And we are going to set this one here to frequency because we want our power to stay the same for this test alone. And let's take our frequency from 700 to 15. So and we are going to run our power from, our speed. Let's set that from 300 to 900. Now, one of the things that I do, I often try to get as much of a sample as I can when I'm first doing a run, because a lot of times you don't know where these color regions are going to be. Oftentimes you'll get a lot of browns, you'll get a lot of grays, you'll get these really weird, almost like a mirror finish or a chrome finish that was all scratched up. And somewhere within this range, you'll see like a little pop of color, a little hint of color. Well, if you zoom into that area, do another material test array in that specific area, that's where a lot of times you'll find colors that you didn't even know existed or didn't know that you can run. So we're going to set this up to about 15 columns, 15 rows. We're also going to take my spacing down to a 1 millimeter spacing. Now, a lot of people have wondered how I've done this in the past. So if you leave that at 3, you can actually use your arrow key and put a point right before that 3. You cannot type 0.3. You have to do it this way. And once you have that, you can actually make those very close together. So let's go ahead and move this up here. When this is created, it's created as a group. And as a group, it's made like that so that you don't accidentally move something around without grabbing one of the tiles or accidentally changing one of the tiles. So when you're doing this, be careful. You don't want to mess anything up, but we are going to ungroup this. I am going to grab just the matrix itself, and I'm going to change that to purple. Then I'm going to grab this red because I already have a red. I don't want them to interchange, and I'm going to change that to green. So now that I have that done, what I can do is select just the green down here in the bottom left, just the green color dot, and that will ensure that I have all of this text. Now that I have that done, I can take that text and I can make it small enough so that that bottom text doesn't overlap each other and that it's all nice and readable. So if I grab that green again, I already have a setting that I have saved that does really good at doing a frosted white color. So if I come in here, I can grab my white stainless steel, and now all of that green is that frosted white. I can also grab it and move everything in so that I am no longer taking up so much space when I run this test array. And once I have all of that set into place, I can highlight the whole thing again, right click and group it. So now I can rearrange this, have full access to moving it in different places without having any of those boxes getting all jumbled up. But you'll also notice that on the right-hand side, you can look through each individual one and make sure that things are actually where they should be. So when you run this test now, you literally saved yourself about 1/3 of the space that it normally would have taken. And then you still have the ability to get yourself a good close look at your settings so that when you're reading this off later, you have something to go by when you're creating something with it. So that is the fundamental thing that most people need to learn when running the F2 and attempting to find colors. It's really important to keep those tiles. One thing that you might notice is that your oil prints after a while might make some of the colors shift a bit, and that's something to keep in mind so that if you are selling these, play with a little bit. Get your fingers all over it, make sure that those colors are going to stay and that you're not going to have any problems moving forward on it. So, like I said, color comes in a couple different flavors. You have this right here, which is almost reflective more than it is annealed. Same goes for this guy right here. And then you have the wood beneath that doesn't change too much. There are a lot of different ways to find those. And one of the biggest things that a lot of people have asked me is, does it always have to be in that 5,000 range to find a color? Well, not necessarily. So this one right here, if we look, this was 3,000 lines per centimeter. I've got one in here that is 2,000 lines per centimeter. I've got several of them in here that are only 600 lines per centimeter. So you can look within all those different spans, but always keep in mind that it's normally a lower power and a much lower speed. The higher powers and quicker speeds are going to do a lot more blading, removing of material. Whereas what we're wanting to do is heat up this material to achieve a color. So that's really where you want to go with that one. So for me, I work with a lot of different types of metals. Stainless steel seems to be the most readily available one for a lot of different shapes and sizes. If you know somebody who has the metal fab or would like to sweet talk one of them, I say go online and start sweet talking and say, hey, I want some stainless steel in the shape of puppy paws, harps, or whatever. And they can actually cut those out with the metal fab. And then you can use your F2 Ultra to do any coloration or engraving on top of that. But for me, I normally stick with stainless steel as well as titanium. But every now and then, I decide to get a little bit crazy, and I pull together some brass. So these are actually embossed and then engraved. Now, the settings were the exact same settings for both pieces. However, it's different types of brass. So you'll notice that the coloring is just a little bit different with them. So yes, you can color on brass. You can color on stainless steel. You can color on titanium and just about any other metal that's ferrous or has iron in it. Um, I was asked about aluminum. So aluminum is one of those ones that you'll get several different variations of a gray, but I have yet to see any true color coming from aluminum. It just not too friendly with the color, I guess. Um, One of the things that I was asked about with the F2 Ultra is really what's the biggest strengths when it comes to color engraving, because there are a lot of different MOPAs out there. I mean, there's a lot of lasers out there, period, but there's a lot of different options out there. And I've always told people, I don't care what brand you have, as long as it checks your boxes and it works good for you. I don't care if you have a $200 laser or a $20,000 laser. If you have the ability to make something awesome that people want, that's where you stand out from other people. For the F2, there are a lot of different things that are great about this. First and foremost, the ability to close this hood down and you have an absolute safe machine that you can use in storefronts, with family, with friends, at events, in a park. Yes, it is a little bit heavier than the F1 Ultra and definitely heavier than the original F1, but it is still a viable option to use in a lot of different areas where that shield is absolutely necessary as well as beneficial. But when it comes to the coloring aspect, this machine versus, say, the F1 or the F1 Ultra or even a D1, it has the ability to allow you to manipulate that frequency so much more in a way that allows you to achieve these colors in a repeatable fashion. Now, a lot of people say, "Well, why are you bringing up the F1, the original?" Well, the reason is because this color chart was actually done on the F1 OG. So yes, you can get color on a diode. You can get color on the D1, the F1, the S1. You can do that. Now, to repeat that color and make sure that it's the same color on the exact same piece of metal that you literally just engraved 3 days ago is quite a bit harder. And that's because you don't have the control that you have with the F2 Ultra. So when it comes to color, that MOPA is the biggest key factor to anything that you can look at with any other machine. On top of that, for me at least, is the software. So the biggest thing is, if we're looking at our software here, we have that ability to change different things. So let me just drop a vector here. So if I set that to C engrave, I can come right here, hold my mouse over C engrave, and I can actually open up a tutorial. I definitely suggest that everybody save this, go check that out, and make sure that you see the different things that can be done. It's a great refresher. It's a great reminder. One of the biggest things that I know a lot of people keep doing is I'll find a color like, oh my gosh, it's a pretty purple. I'm going to save that. So then they go in here and they create something and they set that to engrave and they're looking through their user-defined material and there is no pretty purple. Well, that's because it's saved under C engrave. So little things like that are going to be a bit of a headache for some people, especially myself, because I'm like, why isn't this here? I know this should be here. So definitely keep an eye on that. But yes, check out that tutorial. It's going to be great information, and it's a nice refresher for anybody else who already knows this information. But as to the software itself, we have the ability to change our power in percentages, not just whole numbers. Our speed. Did you know that the F2 Ultra can go 15,000 millimeters a second? I mean, that's absolutely crazy. And no, you're probably not going to use that for a lot of things, but the ability to actually do that when you're doing multiple passes, because that's another way that you can get color. You can change your power, you can change your frequency, you can work with different pulse widths, you can change your line spacing, your speed, and also multiple passes. So a lot of times, if you'll get a pass and it's just almost the color that you want, you can sometimes do a second pass right over it, and a lot of times it will become the color that you're looking for. A little bit darker. Sometimes it completely is a different color. So that's another thing to consider. But the all-around ease of use with this has become, I think, one of the biggest steps that xTool has done since I've been using their products is XCS. So historically, we have always had some issues with our user-defined abilities. So now we have all these different settings that we can save in there. If you go down to manage settings, it will actually open up and I can choose what to do with everything. So like if I have my stainless steel white, if I can spell. So if I got my stainless steel white that's not showing up because it's under C engrave, or actually it's under regular engrave. Let's just do test green for giggles. If I bring this up on the right-hand side, I can associate this with a device. So this now allows me, if I have the F1 Ultra, the F1, the F2 Ultra, P2, or any other machine, I can literally deselect this and just put this on a specific one and only device, except I'm on this one. So that will allow you to weed out a lot of the extra stuff that's in there, because I know that when we're putting things in, we want to put in that it's a blue color, but we need to put on that it's titanium, and we need to put on that it's 1 millimeter instead of 0.5 millimeter, because that can make a difference with the color. This will make it so that it works a little bit easier to find things, especially if we have a green color that we found with our F1, or if it is anything completely different, it will remove the necessity of having to swim through all that extra information that you really don't need at that time. So for me, yes, the machine has a lot of great perks to do the color, but the software is right up there with that machine. No, it's not Lightburn. It's not like some of the other systems that are out there, but I do believe that it has advantages that a lot of those other softwares don't have. So we went over that color test matrix. I want to pull this one back up and show something on this that is kind of important. You are always going to have moments where something just does not quite work out the way you'd hoped. So we saw all these amazing colors up here. What I kind of hit at first was this not so amazing piece right here. Not so amazing to the point that it actually went and destroyed the whole back of this. But right in here are those browns that was used on George's sticks. And right there, you get some really amazing reddish orange colors. Now, a lot of people will tell you that red is one of those colors that is really, really hard to achieve with a MOPA fiber on stainless steel or most any other color metals. Once you find those, make sure you save them, because they're priceless when it comes to doing something that you need a red, and you don't have to sit around and try to figure out where that's at and how to do it. Now, one of the things that I was asked to talk to you guys about is beginners. We were all there once. So suggested for beginners, where to start and what to do to build your matrix and everything. Now, we already showed the matrix, but my biggest suggestion for any beginner is don't sweat the little stuff, and don't think that this is going to be something that is going to be harder than it seems. Most colors that people find are just that. They're found. These people, I'm not a genius. I might be very well versed with the machines, but it is very, very seldom that I can just pull numbers out of my head and tell somebody to run a material test array with those numbers, and they get something. Now, mind you, Carrie Young might argue with that because we did just that during the launch event, but that's not normally the case. Don't lose hope. Don't get sad about things, because it in the long run, you're finding things that aren't what you're looking for, but that tells you that that's a place that you don't have to look in the future. So it's not that you're failing, you're just finding different areas that you need to look. So it can get a little daunting. It can be a little bit of a bummer if you're going through material left and right, but using the material test array the way that I was showing you and being able to scale that down will help alleviate a lot of that excess material fluff, and essentially allow you to start running things on much smaller scales, like this piece right here for those great pinks, purples, blues, or even something much smaller like a name tag. So, and I will be honest, when you do smaller ones like this, some of you might be like, you know what, I can't see those numbers. Well, that's fine. Take a picture of it with your phone, blow it up, and save that into a folder so that that's easier to find. You know, definitely keep the material test array, but keep it in your phone too, so you can just blow that up and not have to worry about whether or not you've got your glasses on hand and you can find everything. So what I would like to do real quick is show you something a little special. Get this stuff out of the way here and bring this down. So the lighting that I have in my shop right now is a little hard. It is coming from multiple different directions, but this right here is one of the holographic effects, but it's just not picking up the light behind me. When I went outside, it was flashy all over the place. Let's see if I can grab a flashlight. That'll help. A little bit there. Not quite as much as I liked it outside, but I want to show you how easy it is to run something like this. And I do have the settings, and mind you, these are the same settings that were used for the one that xTool had on their ads. Pop this over real quick. Now, my jellyfish is just a little bit different, and that's only because I lost the original one. But these right here are the settings on the right-hand side for this piece. If anybody wants to save those down so that you have those settings. And stuff like this was another test piece. Let's set this down here. Actually, use something a little more solid. I'm going to grab a dog tag. Now, I am not using gloves right now. I know it is absolutely horrible of me, but I didn't feel like dealing with the gloves. I apologize. And because of that, I am making sure that I'm not touching anything in here so that I don't have any problems with oil from my fingers getting all over everything. All right. So we'll put that on. I am going to leave the shield open. I promise you I am behaving and putting on my glasses. But we're going to go ahead and run this out so that you can get an idea of the time for a piece like this one right here. And XCS is showing about 43 seconds. I know you can't see it with that name over there, but let's go ahead and hit that. And I was asked to swap the screen so that people can see the settings in this. Hopefully that helps out. Now this is in focus. I personally do not like to do a lot of things that are out of focus. And the reason for that is that I'm just really bad at remembering how much out of focus I went on something. So if I can't find something in focus, I normally don't do it and I don't train it. But this little heat one here is finally done. We'll swap this back over. So again, it's really hard to see with my lights in here, but this is the same holographic dog tag that they had used. I ran it earlier today, and since it was daylight, the lights were a lot better. Behind me, I've got 12 different fluorescent lights on the ceiling, so it makes it a little harder to see that effect. Yes. There, sorry about that. So yes, somebody mentioned that they like to take the clips off so they rest evenly on here. That's why I use something like this so that the clip hangs down below and lays right in the channel. It makes it so that I have less of a chance of getting my fingerprints on it. I don't have to worry about scuffing up the polished surface or anything at all. Now, one of the things that why we're looking at these that I do want to point out is that you would believe that this is the exact same material front and back. But if you look at the back of this, that is actually almost like a brushed effect, whereas the other side is high polish. So if I flip this over, and it might be a little bit harder to see with this setting, but you'll notice that the front and the back, they're not going to yield the same results. So if I'm doing something that may be like a purple on one side, the results on the back are not going to be the same. It's going to be a little bit different because there's actually a coating on the front that allows them to get that polished look on that front. And that makes it a lot harder to do front and back and make them align the same colors. So when you're doing material test arrays, you will need to flip that around back and forth so that you're able to do it. So now that that's almost done here, and I did see that you guys still looking to get those settings, I will flip that around, but it is a lot lighter on this back and not fully engraved compared to the other side. So let me flip this real quick. That should show all of your settings, and I'll wait here for just a second while you guys get those. Also, just so that you all know, I will go ahead and make sure that I create a folder in the project page. I don't know what they call it. ATOMM. Is it Atom? Design Find 3.0. But I'll go ahead and create an image for that one so that we can run all that and not have any issues moving forward. So let me see if I got the rest of this. So I was asked by xTool if I could show you guys some of the AI functionality here. So let me go ahead and open this up. Now, me personally, every single demo that I do, I use AI with people. And the reason for that is that I know that not everybody is a graphic designer. Not everybody has that extra ability to run stuff like that. So I literally use stuff like this. just to show people that if you want to do something that's custom that no one else is doing at the craft fairs, this allows you to do that. So let's go ahead and look in here, and we have the ability to do some color here with the logos. There's text graphics and everything like that. We've got some blade cutting. We have colorful prints, and then we have screen printing. So I kind of like this multicolored blue thing. So let's go ahead and say, so if I tell that to create a little rocket ship for me, and I asked it to include some different colors. Now, one of the ones that I did as a test sample was just this right here, just because I wanted to see the different blacks and blues. You can pull stuff like this out, or even this one right here, to be able to get different colors, or you can even just grab a file that you already have to do that. So yes, let's go ahead and scale that. So if this is my image right here, this might be a little bit harder with this moon having slight red into the white, but I can have it pull my colors out for me just by separating those colors. And then this right here will allow me to select different images from here. So let's go ahead and we'll go ahead, close these out. This one, this one, this one, this one. All right, so here's our black. So let's go ahead and put that back open. Now let's say I want to show my reds. There's my reds. I want to show my blues. There's my blues. So this is a great way to start playing around with images that you can grab from just about anywhere and be able to separate those colors automatically within XCS. You don't have to have Photoshop. You don't have to have all these other programs that, with the monthly fees get a little expensive after a while. So this will give you the ability to create a lot of different things with color using stuff like that if you want to do something a little larger. But you can also just do a regular engraving and add a pop of color with a name or a heart or anything like that. Now, like I said, I know not everybody has Photoshop or Illustrator. Me personally, I love my Illustrator. I use it for a lot of different things, but I know that it's hard for a lot of people to justify the cost of some of these things. So if I have something like, let's see if I can find this guy real quick. So if I have something like this, this is really akin to the chameleon and the octopus that I did. Very, very detailed photos like this might be better with an app like Photoshop to be able to get in there and make sure that you don't have any issues. If you do not have Photoshop, you have other options. You have Inkscape and you have Photopea. Photopea.com is essentially Photoshop and Illustrator in an online free situation. So if you need to work on some of those vector changes, you can do that. But you can also change your vectors in XCS. So that is always going to be an option that way as well. So I know that they wanted me to show you some of my past engravings and stuff. And I really think that a lot of you have seen most of the stuff that I do. Me personally, I am huge with stone and slate and things like that. That's my heart. That's things that I absolutely love doing. Now I do a lot of color, and especially with the holographic stuff, also with different colors for names and logos. And the biggest thing that I really do for color is probably cancer ribbons. I have quite a few friends who are survivors, and I've lost quite a few friends who unfortunately didn't make it when it comes to cancer. So I do quite a bit of donations with the ribbon and sayings or quotes, or just something with a loved one's thumbprint and the ribbon around it. To me, I don't like purchasing something unless it speaks to me. Um, it's absolutely ridiculous. If you were to come to my house, you look at my walls and you'd be like, "Oh, you don't hang photos, you don't do this, you don't do that." I just don't, because I need something to speak to me. I need something to pull at my feelings to make it worth my while. So I tend to do things either this is fixing an issue or a necessity, or this is something that's important. So pet memorials, personal memorials, memories. Those are the big things that I work with the most. So I have a lot of people ask me, where do I start out? What do I do? What kind of things should I make? Ultimately, the things that you should make are literally going to come down to you. Look at your town, look at your city, look at where you're selling at, look at things that make your city what it is. There's a lady online asking about, what should she make? Well, let's see. You had Elvis sing at your guys' what was it, your courthouse. You're huge with Cajun food, Cajun flair, history. Do things like that. There's another guy who was talking about he lives really close to some big rock climbing, cliff climbing place. And for me, I'd be like, that would be awesome to have trinkets or coins or keychains or anything done with the image of that cliff, talking about it, its height, everything else. And then when they show up, customize it with their name and the date that they ascended it, the date that they, got through everything. That to me is the things that I sell the most. I don't do a lot of bulk order stuff. If I do, it's usually just something that comes through and it's my realtor that wants something, or it's doing some work for local CNC shops, serial numbering. My big thing, what my heart goes out to, is memories, things that speak to you and things that are important and you're going to cherish moving forward. So if you're looking at places to start, think about that. Think about what's important to you, what's important to your area. And when you find something like that you really like and you really care about, it makes this so much better. It makes it more fun. It makes it easier to deal with. So we got a couple people in here asking some questions about the color engraving by the lasers. It applied like a paint. So in the beginning, in case anybody missed this or wasn't here when we went over it, it's more like heating up a metal until you create a color, just like a muffler, or creating micro lines in it that are smaller than the wavelength of light that separates that light to achieve your color. So another question was, again, can I do metal color engraving on the F1, F1 Ultra, M1 Ultra? Yes. Yes, you can. But it's a lot like, can I engrave glass on the S1? Oh, yeah, you can. You can do it on the F1 as well. Was it specifically made for that? No, not really, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. But at the same time, your results may not be optimal or 100%. And quite often, your results will vary depending on situational things that are going on in the environment. Leather, wood, glass, all these other materials that a lot of us use in our lasers, those are not going to be something that you can engrave using the laser, applying heat or the lines to create color. Unfortunately, that just doesn't work like that. Now, I know that a lot of us are also 3D printers, and we have seen people engrave their 3D printing beds to allow for their name, their logo, or whatever to go on the bed. And I have seen them create the holographic effect with it, but it is very, very hard to achieve it on a material like that. And all you're doing is the light differential on a piece of hard plastic that's covering your metal bed. Um, Colors, it has to be a metal. Um, Normally a ferrous or a metal that contains iron, but there are some exceptions. You got your titanium, you got your brass, and you got other metals like that. Um, so one of the things that I do want to let you guys know, and I'm going to swap this over real quick just so that we can see this, is that currently, because I forgot to tell you earlier, they are offering a $300 exclusive offer while this is up, and I believe for the next few days, the 28th. So if you use that code, you do order it, you do get the $300 off. I am going to look through here really quick just for a moment to see what we have here question wise. Um, yes, Jamie Wolf. Color challenge coins. So it is doable. Something that I will tell you guys right now is that if you're going to do brass, run a cleaning pass. So I know a lot of us have heard cleaning pass in the past with the lasers. So normally what happens when you are engraving a coin or brass or anything else like that, you'll get that brownish, almost black, sooty kind of look. A cleaning pass, instead of running it at like 95 power, 1200 speed, 32 or 48 frequency, um, you're going to speed that up. You're going to take that up to about 7 to 8,000 speed, leave your power where it is, or even at 100. You're going to take your frequency. If you're on the F1 Ultra, you're going to take your frequency up to 60. If you're on the F2 Ultra, take it up to about 90, 300 lines per centimeter. And when you run that pass, it cleans up all that darkness and all that scuffy kind of look. Now, this also can be used for the cleaning pass while doing embossing in between each emboss pass, but I usually just do it at the end. However, that cleaning pass is also necessary when you are adding color to brass. If you are attempting to add color directly, a lot of times the brass has a oxidation on it, and that color doesn't completely come out, and it doesn't set very well. So you always want to run a cleaning pass prior to doing color on brass. So how hard is it to separate the colors in a file? It's not that hard, for the most part. If you are using XCS does have the color separator built right into it. Adobe Illustrator, Inkscape, Photopea allows you to take an image, vectorize it, and literally separate each point out so that when you export that as an SVG, it imports into XCS as different colors in that SVG already. So there are a lot of different ways that you can create that that separation of color. It just really is going to depend what software you have available to you and how easy you want it to be. CO2. So once I have an image that's up there right now, myself personally, I normally separate that in Adobe. So what I would do, Jamie, is have that already separated, and then each one of it, when it comes in as an SVG into XCS, they'll be separated by colors already. And it helps if you use the colors that are already built into the color scheme in XCS. So if I right click down here, I've got red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, black. Now, if I use those colors in my SVG or Adobe, when that comes into XCS and when I just drop it in or import, it will automatically tag those colors to each of those areas. So that way I don't have to do it. But let's say I want a little more purple in here. I can click on those individual areas and I can change those to purple. Not only that, I can change it to purple, and in all of the layers that are purple, I can have those all be one setting, which would be purple, or I can have them be multiple settings or different shades of purple. So just because your layer has a color attached to it on the bottom does not mean everything in that layer has to have the same settings to achieve the same color. So which metals do I get the most vibrant colors from? Um, Honestly, I get some really, really good colors from titanium, but at the same time, I also get some really good colors from stainless. It really depends on the settings. Now, if I use the same settings between the two of them, I'm not getting the same pretty on either side. But these colors right here, I think are probably some of the most vibrant when you're in standard light that I've seen. Now, that is not too far from this big old chunk of stainless. And by the way, I dropped this on my foot earlier today and I thought I was going to die. Um, so these aren't as shiny vibrant because this is more of a matted eggshell look. But when you're in regular light, the camera doesn't do any of these justice. They pop very, very well. So normally 304 stainless is probably one of my better go-tos, as well as the titanium. And you can get these titanium squares from Amazon. I think it's like $6 or $8 for a 2-pack. So why not UV print an image on a metal plate instead of doing all the research for laser coloring? So that's a great question. So don't tell xTool, but I have a UV printer. That UV printer, if I were to put somebody's name on one of these dog tags that I engraved on, it kind of popped off after a bit. To be able to do that, you have to put on a certain chemical to get it to set, and you have to get it to adhere properly. So it's completely doable, but it's an extra step for me. Now, not everybody is going to like something that's laser engraved, because I could ask the same question: why are you guys laser engraving tumblers instead of sublimating them? Some people absolutely love the look of a lasered tumbler or a lasered piece of jewelry. Here's my biggest answer for myself. Like I said, I do quite a bit of memorial pieces. So I will take somebody's fingerprint and I will engrave that into the metal and give it a depth so that when you run your finger across it, you feel that fingerprint. And then I will add a heart or a cancer ribbon or anything else to it in color to make it something that's special and important to somebody. And getting that texture, yes, it's doable on some UV printers, but oftentimes when you have that texture on a print and it's getting stuck on a necklace or your shirt or anywhere else, it's a lot easier to scrape that off if it's the print than it is if it's literally engraved into the metal. It's not ever going to come off. So do colors on metal need a coating applied to last? Not always. Yes, there is sometimes that you need to do a coating to get things to last, especially if it is a very light coat, a light coloring to the metal. Sometimes, yes, you really do need to get that done. But this is one of the things that I always try to do is I tend to give stuff to my dogs, put it on their collar, let them play, let them run. Now, you may not have seen my dogs, but I have 3 absolute units of mooses. And it's like Clash of the Titans in the backyard. They slam into each other. They have ripped off collars. They've ripped off dog tags. I like to see how well it lasts on them. So before I will sell a new product, like a dog tag product to somebody or a necklace, I usually throw that on there and leave it on them for a couple of weeks to see how much they scratch it up, what they do to it, what every other stuff does to it. I also like to take things and toss it in a glass of salt water to see how long it's going to last, if it's going to rust, things like that. So there's always some testing that I do, but for the most part, unless it is the shiny, like super polished jewelry, I tend not to have any problems at all. It's when it's that super polished jewelry or coated jewelry that I tend to see that things rub off a little bit or age poorly. So I tend to watch those quite a bit more than I watch anything else. If you're talking about running UV colors through the dishwasher, most UV resin isn't food safe, so that's not something that I've done yet. So, all right. So just to recap, because I know that we're pushing that time limit here. No, I do not treat with wax. Um, Everything in this video is going to be saved. It's going to be on YouTube as well as on Facebook. If you have questions and you want to reach out to me directly in the group, I'm Jaccobb Jingleheimer Schmidt. That might be your name too. Also, I want to take the files that I used here, the settings that I used here, and I'm going to compile it into one project for the project page, and I'll get that loaded up. Give me till tomorrow. It's been a little crazy hectic here, but I'll get that loaded up tomorrow so that you guys can have those settings in case you missed them. If you have questions, I'm always available. Also, keep in mind that xTool now has their demo squad, their xTool squad. So we can do demos. So if you're interested in a new machine, you can log right in. You can find somebody locally that you can go visit, or you can hop right online and have a one-on-one demo of the machine. You can also do training. So if you want to learn how to do coins, if you want to learn how to do tumblers, if you want to learn how to do anything that somebody else is teaching on there, you can always hop right on there, set up a class with somebody, and get yourself a little firsthand knowledge. It's an absolute amazing service. And I really think that it can help a lot of people out who just aren't getting the help from the groups that they really wish they had. You know, Mr. AV, that's my middle name. All of it, crazy and hectic. So definitely, check out the xTool squad for the demo groups. Check it out for just training. Be active in the groups, and always try to be helpful. One thing that you guys will notice is that the more people that you connect with, the more resources you're going to have. So if you learn something, help somebody else out. It's always going to be like that. Just be there for each other, and we can all grow as one big unit. So without any more crazy for Mr. Avery, I'm going to hop off here. If you have questions, please let me know. Don't be afraid to reach out. If I don't answer really quickly, I might be stuffing my face or napping. So, but either way, I'll get to you as soon as I can. But you all have a great day, and thank you guys for coming in.